Thank you. And thank you to everyone involved in this award. I have it behind me in this beautiful corsage that was delivered to me today because unfortunately I'm in quarantine. And thank you, Shelley, for that wonderful introduction. And while I'm really honored by this recognition and I'm certainly grateful for it, the truth is the credit really does go out to our members and then to our staff. They're the ones that are out there fighting the good fight and making, as Congressman John Lewis would have said, good trouble. Shelley's a perfect example of this. She works full-time as a paraeducator and then leads all of our PSRP locals as AFT Connecticut's Divisional Vice President. And the same goes for Mary Jordan in our Pre-K-12 Education Council. And it was really Sherry Dayton who led the nurses on their successful strike at Bacchus Hospital into a great contract. And as much as I love lifting up the work of these badass women, they'll tell you the same thing. We are fighting the good fight because we have amazing members alongside us, and they're doing amazing things. And they're doing this in such a strange and difficult time. It's a whole new world with COVID. And because of that, I truly believe we have an opportunity to change. As Shelley mentioned, in addition to my day job, I am the co-president of the Americas for Public Service International, or PSI. And they're starting a new campaign called No Going Back to Normal. And that may sound really strange, especially when you hear everyone saying, I can't wait to get back to normal. But think about it. Are they really saying, I can't wait to get back to normal? Or are they saying, I want to see my friends and family without worrying about getting sick or them getting sick? I want to be able to do my job without worrying about safety or getting criticized for being afraid and stressed out. And those things are real. But consider this. This pandemic has made our national health crisis, social crisis, and economic crisis impossible to ignore. And we have the power to fix these crises instead of going back to normal. I think about healthcare. This pandemic has opened our eyes and our hearts to the work of safety. I think of all of our amazing nurses and our healthcare workers who have been going to work day after day. As Rob pointed out, they didn't have the opportunity to stay home or to work from home. They put their lives and the lives of their families on the line every day. We cannot go back to normal and take these workers for granted. And we must continue forward with the war against corporatization of healthcare. These large for-profit facilities are still making our nurses and healthcare workers use and reuse an N95 mask for a week or until it's soiled. N95s are designed to be for one-time use. Nurses and healthcare workers continue to get sick and die because they're not provided enough proper PPE. These corporations also refuse to hire enough staff and nurses to have safe staffing levels, and members are having to face physical and psychological dangers because of it. We also see the damage this disease has created for people without access to affordable healthcare, especially people of color. COVID has made clear what has always been true. Healthcare is, unfortunately, a benefit for the entitled, not a right for everyone. This has to change. We must have a healthcare system that removes profit so that we can ensure the delivery of care is based on the needs of patients in the community, not shareholders. I also spend a lot of time worrying about our public schools and our public workers and how we're going to have a fight on our hands when the legislature gets back in session and has to develop a new budget. We have lived through austerity budgets, and as Reverend Mark said, they don't work. I read about a woman who's living in her car. She works, takes a shower at a shelter every day, then goes to work every day. She has not received a raise in years and is now paying a large portion of her healthcare insurance. When she got sick with COVID, she had to take unpaid leave and pay a large deductible on her insurance. She cut every unnecessary bill she had, but she still couldn't pay her rent. That is what austerity budgets do, and we cannot go back to that normal. How about instead, we have those large nonprofits with huge endowments pay their fair share of taxes instead? How about we ask those corporations that are socking money away in offshore bank accounts to pay their fair share of taxes? How about asking for a progressive tax structure to return to a level that we haven't seen for decades so that the lowest paid workers are not keeping the economy of Connecticut going. Taxes and austerity budgets, we cannot go back to that normal. And not to be too politically partisan, but we've seen unprecedented federal attacks on environmental regulations. Even as we speak, an administration that has been voted out of office is gutting safeguards that have existed since the 1970s. Undoing these damaging regulations put in place in the last 4 years is a necessary first step, but it's not enough. More has to be done. We are told that if we do not make significant changes, the earth will not be able to recover. We cannot go back to that old normal. Think about the youngest person in your life, the youngest person you love. What are you willing to sacrifice so they have a planet to live on? We need that to be the perspective of a new normal. The way things used to be are not good enough. And this is the Amistad Awards, so I would be remiss if I didn't say that America's relationship with race is another area that going back to normal is unacceptable. The murders of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Eric Gardner, and countless others are not just the way things are, sadly, they're the way they've always been. Tens of thousands of disenfranchised voters of color are not the way things are, it's the way they've always been. Government structures are in place to perpetuate poverty for people of color. But that is the way it's always been. For people of color, there are no good old days. We must commit to building an ideal society for everyone. We must resolve to ensure that the good times are shared equally by everyone, not hoarded by 1% of the population. And to quote Teddy Roosevelt, the welfare of each of us is dependent fundamentally upon the welfare of all of us. Friends, we have not only the opportunity to make changes, we have the responsibility to make changes, and the time is now. Please ask yourself, are you willing to just go back to normal? Or would you like to be part of a social movement that refuses that normal? Our communities and our citizens require a movement that demands change and justice, united for the world we want. And I look forward to joining that fight with you. And I believe today, more than ever, we can win that fight. Thank you.